Hi, guys, and welcome to another Op India podcast with me, Sham Sharma, and as usual, Kushal Mehra. Kushal, hello.
Hey guys, how's it going? How are you, Sham?
Good, good, very good. Thank you. So, today is our third podcast of 2018 and our last podcast of 2018. But we're really looking forward to it. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. And so, I wanted to start today with the sort of one of the biggest stories of the week, which is the NIA raids that happened across 16 locations in UP and Delhi, where the NIA has busted a ISIS module. This new module that they have busted is called the Harkat ul Harb e Islam. So obviously, it has nothing to do with Islam, and it is also suspected by the NIA to have connections with ISIS. So what's interesting to me is two things. The first thing is, people are for some reason are not very happy with this raid, and one of the things that I've seen is that people have shared some pictures. So I'm going to just share a couple of pictures with you. So this is a picture, and I'm going to just share my screen, and you'll take a look at this. So this is a picture that you will see has been shared by a gentleman called Piyush Rai on Twitter. And so he shares two pictures, one on the left, which is a local Meerut gang, and one on the right, which is the NIA raid that was recently made. And he said कि अरे देखो कि NIA raid से तो पटाखे और कट्टे बरामद हुए हैं, and ये किस तरह की raid है. But what this picture doesn't show you, and this picture इसको लेके people have run on social media and they are saying कि ये किस तरह की raid है, क्या बकवास है. But if you actually look at deep dive into the story, and if you stop outraging over just one tweet, and if you actually go and deep dive on the story and you say ki puri story hai kya, so then you see this. You see the entire picture, and you see yahan
Sham,
pe.
I think your screen is stuck. I don't know.
Is my
Your
screen
screen
stuck
is stuck.
again?
Yeah.
Possible that my screen might be stuck. So is that better now? Can you see the Times of India screen?
No, let's see. Let's just wait.
How about now?
Nope, it's not. So it's okay. You can remove the screen share and just explain.
Okay, so I'll explain it to you. So every now and then we run into technical troubles, which always means that the episode is going to be very good. So what has happened essentially, if you look at the entire photo, so the entire photo, you see those guns, you see those bullets, you see dozens of mobile phones, you see rocket launchers, and you also see something which nobody seems to be talking about, which is 25 kilograms of explosive material, including potassium nitrate, including ammonium nitrate, sulfur, and sugar material. So if anybody, whoopsie daisy, my mic decided to fall off. If anybody is aware of the terrorist attacks that have taken place in India before, or is aware of the terrorist attacks that have taken place in Europe and in other countries around the world before, then you know that all of these materials are materials that are used to construct IEDs or improvised explosive devices, and they're being used by terrorist groups. They're being used by lone wolves attacks all across the world. So that is something that for some reason either parts of the media or these liberal commentators that are commentating on these NIA raids, they are just not talking about. You have mobile phones there that can be used to remotely detonate these IEDs as well. So what's very interesting to me is, for some reason, doing a raid, busting up an ISIS module, and finding 25 kilograms of explosive material that can cause an immense amount of death and destruction, that's not enough for liberal commentators, Kushal bhai.
Yeah, I think this is the first time actually I have experienced something like this where I'm actually confused कि इनका point क्या है. So from what I have gathered by the commentariat in this country, on Twitter there were some slight tweets, and even on the news they're like, see Sutli bomb. I was like, hang on, what do you want? So do you want a terrorist to actually go around carrying nuclear weapons? That's when you'll be like, yeah, baby, that's what I call a terrorist. That's what I really want. I don't get it. So I was going through different journalists. So one of them had said there were 112 alarm clocks, 90 mobile phones, and 134 SIM cards, to be precise. Then there was a Desi rocket launcher, bulletproof jackets, etc., etc. Now, the liberals in this country are saying these are low self-esteem terrorists. I was like, मजा नहीं आया यार, ये क्या है? कम से कम AK-47 तो होनी चाहिए थी. मतलब ये क्या है? मतलब 4-5 ग्रेनेड मिलते थे हमको, और ऐसे मतलब what are they trying to say? Either we can look at it many ways, right? The terrorists have been pummeled so much that now they have to resort to sutli bombs and stuff like that. Or we can say these sutli bombs have some content that can be extracted out of the sutli bomb, and then you can make homemade explosives. If my memory serves me correct, whether it was the Boston bomber, which was the big famous Boston Marathon in the United States of America, then there was a failed terrorist attempt of that Pakistani national involved in New York
Yeah,
Times
New
Square,
York City. Yeah.
right? Which did not go off. Both those bombs were homemade. In fact, in the second one, which was the Times Square one, if you remember correctly, the bomb messed up because it
Yeah.
was a homemade bomb. So the point is, kudos to NIA. What is wrong with people in this country?
It's
Do you
almost
really?
like saying कि जब तक 300-400 लोग मरते नहीं है तब तक मजा नहीं आता. तो यही बात हो गई ना कि अरे यार, even if we can prevent loss of 1 or 2 people's life, is that not enough for you?
नहीं, उनके तन को नहीं लगा ना. देखो, टेररिज्म वो जो तन को लगे, मतलब मेरे तन को ना लगे मगर किसी और के तन को तो पक्का लगे. देखो, जब तक 10-15 ना मरे और थोड़ा लाइफ में नहीं होए भगदड़ और हमारी टीआरपीज नहीं बढ़े, सर हमको फिर वो ऐसे वी हैव टू प्रिटेंड वी आर रिपोर्टिंग लाइव फ्रॉम फलाना फलाना स्पॉट वेयर फलाना फलाना बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट हैज हैपेंड, तब तक दैट इज टेररिज्म फॉर देम. एंड इफ यू रिमेंबर a great journalist saying, I think it was Rajiv Sardesai, right? जब वो terrorism होता है तो हमारे दाढ़ गिल्ली हो जाती है, right? So I mean, if you can put that comment and this sarcasm, I think the answer is there. I mean, they really want shit to happen in this country. That's when they say like, now we nailed it. Now is when we have the answer, right? This is terrorism. Everything else is not terrorism. And the only sane answer you can give to these people is shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
And I feel bad for the. It's almost that you feel bad for the intelligence agencies. Like, well, they kind of know that they're in a thankless job, but at the same time, you feel bad for them because if they do their jobs, then people say कि अरे तुमने सिर्फ 10 लोगों को पकड़ा, तुमने सिर्फ 25 किलो के explosives बरामद किए, ये क्या बकवास है? If they don't do their job, then you get crucified as well. So it's a completely thankless job. But I guess that's sort of part of what they signed up for. The best way that you know that the NIA is doing its job well when you don't hear about the NIA a lot, or the best way that you know that the intelligence agencies are doing their job well is when you don't hear about the intelligence agencies a lot. So I guess that's the industry, or that's the job they signed up for. But they're in a strange no-win situation. They can't win in any scenario.
And you know what is interesting is this is the same crop of people who were questioning India during the surgical strikes.
Yep.
If you remember, you can literally draw a parallel between both the people. This is the same people who said, why are we celebrating barbarism? Why do you want barbarism? Why are you celebrating this kind of jingoistic nationalism? तो भाई तेरे को ये लो सेल्फ एस्टीम टेररिज्म से क्या प्रॉब्लम है? तेरे को तो खुश होना चाहिए ना उसमें. यहाँ पे अच्छा टेररिज्म होगा तो जिंगोइज्म चाहिए. चलो थोड़ा सा सर, और थोड़ा सा सर कम से कम 50 किलो तो होना चाहिए था.
15 लोग तो और मारो कम से कम.
मतलब अच्छा, they are so inconsistent even in their rant. I mean, कम से कम consistently rant तो करो यार. एक तरफ जब खुद की कंट्री जाती है और अपने आप सेल्फ डिफेंस करके आती है और दुश्मन को चपेड़ मार के आती है, तो बोलते हो देखा जबरदस्ती की दिखा रहे हो. और खैर हमारे देश में तो लोगों ने ये भी कर दिया था कि सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक्स ही फेक हैं, तो मतलब उसके ऊपर तो जाना ही नहीं है. मगर पॉइंट है कि आप इंटेलेक्चुअल इनकंसिस्टेंसी देखो. दोनों सिचुएशंस हैं, पोल्स ऑपोजिट आंसर है. Sometimes I feel for liberal intelligentsia in India, BJP and Sangh are the eternal untouchables. वो जो भी करे ना, हमको उसका उल्टा करना है. अगर वो बोले सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक्स की, ये कोई चीज है जिंगोइज्म. अगर वो बोले देखो वी हैव जस्ट बस्टेड, NIA हैज बस्टेड बट द गवर्नमेंट इज BJP, तो ये तो थोड़ा ना चलेगा. तो वी हैव टू क्रिटिसाइज दैट थिंग इटसेल्फ. वी हैव टू सी, देखो दिवाली का सुतली बॉम्ब मिल गया उसमें, पता नहीं. I just find it stupid. And This is what I call you reduce the discourse of a country every time using some stupid strawman. And the strawman in this case was the Sutli bomb, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो जिन लोगों की हम बात कर रहे थे उनमें से बहुत सारे लोग हैं who came out and said कि अरे इंडिया में तो आईसिस है ही नहीं. इंडिया में आईसिस कहाँ से आएगा? There is no presence of ISIS in India. There is no influence of ISIS in India. But that is also a strange argument to make because जो data है इस subject पे वो काफी काफी relatively clear है. Now comparatively to the Muslim population in India, proportion-wise, these might be small numbers, but at the same time, in 2015, 19 people were arrested by Indian security agencies for pro-ISIS work. In 2016, 54 people were arrested for pro-ISIS sentiments and pro-ISIS work. In 2017, the number came down to 34, but 88 people from around India are believed to have gone and joined ISIS in the Middle East for fighting, in the ISIS whatever army they have, and then 25 Indians are already believed to have been killed fighting for ISIS. So, ठीक है, yes, I agree that comparatively to comparing to the entire Muslim population in India, that's a very small number. Of course, it is, but it's still a fairly large number. And to say that ISIS has no presence, ISIS has no influence in India, or the ideology of ISIS or the attraction of ISIS has no influence in India, ये तो सीधे सीधे झूठ हो गया. ये तो सीधे सीधे हो गया कि भाई हम अपना we are an ostrich and अपना सर लेके जमीन में गाड़ के बैठ जाएंगे कि देखो भाई चारों तरफ तो अंधेरा है, कुछ हो ही नहीं रहा. It's basically like saying that.
The whole thing makes no sense because ISIS is not the only organization that is practicing a very violent form of extremism, which is connected to Islamism. It's not the only organization. So again, this whole bogey that, ISIS has very few recruits from India, well, there are multiple reasons for it. ISIS and its jihad or its war is something that is happening outside the borders of India.
Yeah.
And when you look at the historical narrative in India, the jihad has always been internal in India. So if you remember, when the Afghan war was finished, where were the Afghans, where did the Afghani Mujahideen go? They came to India. And since then, they found a perfect home in India. So obviously, ISIS will not get many recruits in India. There could be multiple variables in that. One could be the Indian Muslim population is not very radicalized. I'm willing to concede that. Two, the ones that are radicalized find more stuff to do in India itself. I mean, hasn't anyone given that a thought?
Yeah, Indian Mujahideen ही देख लीजिए.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't get it. It's such a silly argument that it baffles me. But it baffles me and it annoys me at the same time because at least in the olden days in politics, I mean, I remember it. I mean, I'm 37, will turn 38 next month. But when we were in college or, just passed out of college, there were a few lines that political parties had agreed upon not crossing. One of them was national security. At least, मतलब silent agreement थी कि यार इन चीजों में नहीं करेंगे, बाकी मतलब पूरा kitchen sink फेंक दो एक दूसरे के ऊपर, बाकी सब मारेंगे हम एक दूसरे को. What saddens me is, I don't know, there could be a correlation causation problem in this, but since the advent of Arvind Kejriwal in Indian politics, I have noticed one change in India. See Arvind Kejriwal, I always look at political parties and religions very parallelly. Religions come one after the other. So for a new religion to, show itself in the marketplace of idea, it has to uptick the Magnus quotient. I always say that. Every new religion is crazier than the past one. I mean, you can just look at the whole, look at Abrahamism. You had Judaism, then you had Christianity, then you had Islam. Now you have Mormonism. I mean, just look at it. Now you have Scientology too. I mean, we have weird things. Similarly in politics, right? For a new political player to come, corruption is never a good enough platform. So if Aam Aadmi Party would not have broken that national security consensus, it was really not different from either CPIM or the Congress in the Indian political landscape per se. See, BJP has its niche. It has the core Hindutva voter and it has the Uniform Civil Code, Ram Janmabhoomi voter. Like everybody has to have a core. Aam Aadmi Party का कोई core ही नहीं है. So Aam Aadmi Party tried to break everything that is sacrosanct. And what I have seen is then obviously the Congress had to outdo the Aam Aadmi Party. So it's kind of sad that, Congress at least would not be that hopeless in the olden days. And now the current avatar in Congress, where they start questioning everything when it comes to national security, also worries me. See, I have zero hope from Aam Aadmi Party.
Yeah.
I don't. And they are not a pan India party. But when the Congress and the large scale liberal establishment starts doing that, we should be worried as Indians, not as BJP voters or Congress voters. We should be worried as Indians. That's my view.
I think that's the perfect way to encapsulate that whole topic as well. I completely agree that I think when we start questioning every single national security decision that the government makes, simply because it is the government that you ideologically or for whatever reason disagree with, then we're in a spot of bother. Then we're in a bit of a soup. So that's something to think about. All right, I want to move quickly to another topic, and this is also an interesting one because Rahul Kanwal, he's a journalist, and he recently tweeted out this whole thing about how he was working on a story and how he has this breaking story, how he has this amazing thing. What he's talking about, how Dalits are not allowed in some of India's biggest temples, including at the Gorakhnath Mandir in Gorakhpur. And he said, this is the ugly reality of India and the ugly reality of India exposed. And incidentally, if people are not aware, Gorakhnath Temple is also the temple belonging to the Nath Sampradaya, and Yogi Adityanath belongs to the Nath Sampradaya, and he's also the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. So a lot of people don't like him. So maybe there's a connection, maybe there's not. But what's interesting to me about that is that immediately, as soon as that article broke, as soon as that tweet was posted, there were plenty of people from all walks of Hindu life, from all jatis, all varnas. People came out and started saying, what are you talking about? What where are you getting this information from? What kind of journalism is this? Because there were tons of Dalits who came out and said that we've been to Gorakhnath Temple. Nobody has said anything to us. There's a gentleman called Vikas Pandey. He knew somebody who works at the Gorakhnath Temple, who then went and conducted interviews with people who work at Gorakhnath Temple and then who have visited Gorakhnath Temple, who are Dalits. And in those interviews, they said that, look, nobody has ever said anything to us. We have gone here for years. We have prayed here for years. Nobody has said anything to us. So I have no idea what you're talking about. Another, prominent person on Twitter, Abhinav Prakash, who happens to be a Dalit, happens to be a wrong kind of Dalit. We'll get into that. But he said that he's been to the Gorakhnath Temple on multiple occasions. Nobody has ever stopped him. Nobody has ever said anything to them. So it really makes you wonder, what is the ultimate goal of publishing a report like this and publishing faulty stuff like this when there is overwhelming evidence to the contrary?
Well, there is a reason to do that. I mean, I think the answer was in the statement you made itself, because it is something to do with Yogi Adityanath.
Yeah.
Yogi Adityanath is equal to nahi chalega. Basically, that's it. Nahi chalega. So you come up with ways of maligning him. And see, you have to understand, in a society like ours, when you throw a caste allegation, most probably people will buy it. Why? Because we have casteism in our society. So we have this eternal problem where we know casteism exists, so we're going to use it. I have another angle to this. I have no proof to what I'm saying, but casteism exists in different states in India.
Sir, this makes you a journalist, so be
So
careful.
obviously, I mean, we are. See, I am a good friend of Rahul Roshan, and Rahul has taught me to do one thing, that ape the other side. So
Yeah.
I'm now going to spin it around. So if you remember a few days ago, that Bangalore story had come where Dalits were kept in captivation,
Yep.
right? What happened to that story? I don't know if it is fake news. I don't know if it's real news. Nobody's talking about it. Maybe it's fake news. I don't know. But then suddenly this story comes out of after that, and then we keep talking about it. So you always keep in mind there are, so even casteism is of two kinds. So if a Dalit like Abhinav Prakash goes to that temple, says, I've been there so many times, what will be the left wing answer to that? Tum Dalit hi nahi ho. Because the moment anybody from the OBCs or the SC/STs start voting for BJP, they lose their privilege in the religion of social justice warriorism,
Yeah.
because they have committed the original sin. of choosing the BJP as their messiah. So you have to understand.
You've broken the intersectionality code.
I mean, blasphemy, boss. It's blasphemy. You cannot be a Dalit and vote for BJP.
Yeah.
Just like in America, you cannot be a black man and be a Republican. This is exactly. So the story is not whether there were Dalits allowed or not allowed. Obviously, Dalits are allowed in that temple. It would take a dunderhead to say they're not allowed. Because if anybody knows the history of the Nath Sampradaya in
Yeah.
India, I mean, why was it created? What is the story of the Nath Sampradaya? What has the Nath Sampradaya got to do with casteism and fighting against casteism? वो भी जरा थोड़ा पढ़ लिया करो यार. In fact, once a person becomes the head of that Sampradaya, they surpass all Varnas. Isn't
Yeah.
that the whole logic
That's correct.
in that Sampradaya? So it is the antithesis of casteism. That particular Sampradaya itself is the antithesis of casteism. So to throw muck at that, now, they could easily find some random dude and say, देखो हमको नहीं allow किया, and they say, देखो हो रहा है. And we can throw 15 random dudes and say, देखो ये दलित है, इनको allow हो रहा है. मगर प्रॉब्लम ये नहीं है. प्रॉब्लम है कि अगर आप एक दलित इस देश में प्रेजेंट भी कर दोगे तो बोलेगा भाई मेरे को अलाउ कर रहे हैं उधर इस पर्टिकुलर टेंपल में. मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ सब टेंपल में अलाउ होते हैं. सो प्लीज डू नॉट मिक्स दीज टू इश्यूज.
We are only talking about the Gorakhnath Temple right now.
Yeah. The moment you start saying that, you lose your privilege certificate as a Dalit in the Indian socio-political sphere. Just see how they treat Dalits who support BJP, RSS. It's a crystal clear way of thinking. They are absolutely religious people who are convinced in their head that their God and their ideology is the only ideology. And that, to me, that is the takeaway. Because when Abhinav had declared it on Twitter, that, hang on, what are you talking about? What I was not interested in, Abhinav got two sets of replies. The standard was everybody who agreed with him or who were, kind of in the BJP camp retweeting him. That's fine. But see what the replies to Abhinav were. You are and the standard replies that black people get, or brown people in America get. You're a porch monkey. The standard replies, right? You're an Uncle Tom. So basically, every time Abhinav says something like that, he becomes that Uncle Tom. That is the mindset we should, talk about, and we should let people know that this is the oppression Olympics you're talking about. Just being Dalit is not good enough. You have to be Dalit and hater of BJP at the same time.
Yeah.
दो होगा तो तुमको ऑपरेशन कार्ड मिलेगा. एक होगा जाओ बाहर, तुम नहीं हो. तभी जब राइट्स होंगे ना, दलित मुस्लिम राइट्स, तब वो हिंदू मुस्लिम राइट्स होंगे. तब तुम दलित नहीं होगे. ये याद रखना.
अभी यूपी में हुआ था ना. यूपी में somewhere, I can't remember the place exactly, but I read यूपी में somewhere there were exclusively there was some area जहाँ पे ज्यादातर दलित हैं, and वहाँ पे दलित मुस्लिम riots हुए थे, and they were Dalit Muslim riots because the people rioting were Dalits and Muslims, but every news agency that covered it called it a Hindu-Muslim riot. And yeah, technically it is because those Dalits are Hindus, I understand. But it's also a very smart strategy, एक तरह से, to show कि भाई यहाँ से ये हम नहीं दिखा सकते कि Dalit and Muslims can be at odds with each other. ये नहीं दिखाया जा सकता. Dalit and Muslim are together in that intersectionality triangle में तो Dalit and Muslims are together. Dalits, Muslims, Christians, we're all together in this fight against the evil, oppressive, evil Hindu, basically.
Hey, you know what? I just mentioned the Karnataka Dalit story, so somebody has just tweeted to me. So a shout out to Aghora at unified_humans. Shout out to you. He's just tweeted that Kushal Mehra, the Dalit captive story in Karnataka was not fake news. BJP Karnataka's leader, Ms. Shobha BJP, met the victims personally. So thanks a lot, man, for a live update. So a shout out to you. So Sham, now my theory is right.
Yeah.
So the Karnataka Dalit story was there. So, they threw this story. And once again, I'm repeating, I am not saying that there is no casteism in India. There are temples which may not even allow Dalits in India. I am willing to concede that. But my point is that this was used as a stick to beat Yogi Adityanath. It was fake. If you want to talk about Dalit oppression, I am with you 24 hours of the day, 365 days of the year. Let's talk about the Karnataka Dalits. Actually, I do want to talk about it. The horror in that story. I mean, when I came across that story, I think there were 52 people in total, right?
Right.
We had 52 people who have been kept captive on basic food and not even given normal wages. I don't know if it breaks my heart or makes me angry or both. I don't know. I just get mixed emotions when
It
you
really
see that.
should be. It really should be both, because that's the feeling that I get from it. That something like that still happens, and that the anger at something like that still happening.
It's 2018. We're 71 years now. इस देश को होने वाले हैं, and we are still dealing with this rubbish in this country. I mean, we should be ashamed. I think I feel ashamed at times. क्या है
Yeah.
ये? What are we doing? I mean, how can we? And then people say there is no slavery. This is slavery. What happened to those 52 people? This is modern day slavery. I am with those people, and whosoever has done that, I hope the harshest possible punishment of the law is given to that person.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And this is again, so the point is that this is a very real issue. The discrimination that happens against certain castes in India by certain castes in India, it's a very real issue. It's a real issue, and coming from a state like Bihar, I see this because Bihar may, and in some areas of UP as well, this kind of caste differences are pretty big. They are pretty big mainly because the political parties know how to exploit them really, really, really well. And most elections in India, in Bihar at least, are decided on those, along those caste lines as well. So I know the kind of discrimination that is happening there, and it's a very real thing. And उसके ऊपर से जब आप ये झूठी फूटी कहानियां फैलाने लगते हो, हाउ इज इट हेल्पिंग द सिचुएशन इन एनी वे? हम लोग ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं इस देश में आज कि हम लोग ये कास्टिज्म से आगे बढ़े, हम लोग ये ट्रांसेंड करें इस तरह के कास्टिज्म को, जो कास्टिज्म पिछले कम से कम 600-700 सालों से हम जिस तरह से झेल रहे हैं उससे थोड़ा आगे बढ़े। लेकिन अगर इस तरह की हम न्यूज पब्लिश करते रहे, झूठी मूठी न्यूज, स्पेशली इन एरियाज जहां पे उस तरह का कास्ट डिफरेंसेस, कास्ट प्रॉब्लम है नहीं, उस जगह को भी हम उस तरह से टार्निश करेंगे, व्हाट आर वी ट्राइंग टू डू? एंड ब्रिंग्स मी टू अ क्वेश्चन, वेयर इज why do people need to do this? इस तरह के झूठे न्यूज, इस तरह की गलत सलत न्यूज जो कि which only stokes the sort of caste tensions that already exist in India society, इस तरह की झूठी न्यूज पब्लिश करने की जरूरत क्या है? Why create a problem where there is no problem? So I genuinely believe that it is because you know traditional media is getting left behind in a big way. And so traditional media, in order to try and stay relevant, and on top of that, we're being inundated with so many types of new media that in order to stay relevant, anybody who wants to stand out has to create scandals, has to create headlines that immediately you will look and you'll be like, Are, ye kya ho gaya? Oh my God, I have to click on this right now. So clickbait is the lifeblood of the media landscape that we are in right now. And YouTube is a perfect example of this. Mainstream media channels, whether it's Republic, whether it's NDTV, whether it's whatever, koi bhi le lo, is a perfect example of this. And it's a sad reality, really, of the media landscape we live in. How long this is going to stay this way is something that I don't know. I don't know if you have a guess on something like that.
No, I don't think so. This module is going to change for a long, long time, because I think I had spoken about this in the last podcast, our last Opindia podcast too. Is basically based on hijacking our negativity, you know, uh, portion in our
Hmm.
brain, where we are just evolved to react more to negative news, and this is not going to change. The only way out of this negativity, uh, circle jerk, is just reduce your time on social media. That's all you can do. Spend more time reading proper news websites like Opindia and others. I'm not saying don't go to other sources. Go to other sources, but first go to Opindia. But uh, you have to spend more time reading. You have to have patience. You have to dig deeper. Otherwise, if you're just going to go by headlines, you're in for an eternal unhappiness quotient in your life.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about it. You get up in the morning. What's the first thing you do? A lot of people pick up their cell phone and they check the news. They don't check the news by going to a news website. They
Mhm.
go on their Twitter timelines or their Facebook timelines. They do that. And the algorithm of both those companies is basically what? It's going to take you to places where the most extravagant rubbish is present there.
Yeah.
So if you see the Facebook, once Facebook understands that, oh, apparently this guy only talks politics or is interested in politics. So they'll take the most extreme political news and put it on your timeline.
Yeah.
So मतलब जिंदगी वैसे ही खराब थी, सुबह उठते सार और खराब कर ली मैंने कि आधा घंटा सिर्फ वही पढ़ रहा हूं मैं. It's not like you get up and say, oh, look at nice photo. देश में सब कुछ अच्छा है. So it's a very dangerous loop, and every news channel is exploiting this thing where you peddle anything without presenting the nuance, without presenting any facts. I mean, I remember one good friend of mine had once told me, I was like, how do you react to news? He's like, the first thing, I have a rule. I don't react to any news item for 48 hours.
Mhm.
I was like, तब तक तो news ही खत्म हो जाएगा. He's like, that's the case. If you don't react for the first 48 hours, most of the times the fake stuff goes away in 24 hours. The real stuff that means something and that has something of substance lingers on. Then you react to it. Just wait for 48 hours. Just wait for the other side's response to it. Most of the times when the response comes, you can get the answer. At least that's the rule I follow. I try to avoid reacting to anything immediately. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I must have done it hundreds of times in my life too. But at least I'm making a conscious effort. And that's my request to everyone. Just wait for 48 hours before you decide this has happened or not. If you would have waited 48 hours on the Yogi Adityanath, the Gorakhnath Mandir Dalit issue, you would have not outraged.
Yeah, it's true. It's that old story, कि एक सांप और ऊद बिलाव की स्टोरी थी ना. तो माता जी ने घर में घुसने के पहले ही ऊद बिलाव को देखा और ऊद बिलाव को पेल दिया. But actually ऊद बिलाव was trying to kill the snake that was trying to bite her baby. तो वही बात है कि थोड़ा, I think a little bit of patience is good, and that's something I can use a little bit as well. A little bit of patience on social media before reacting to things. And yeah, it's just, but what do you see? According to you, आपको क्या लगता है कि इस तरह का जो हमारा मीडिया लैंडस्केप है अभी, जहां पे we are only trying to go for clickbait, we are only trying to go for the most scandal, we are only trying to go for the most negative thing, because those three things, the most scandalous, the most negative, the most clickbait, that is going to get you the most clicks, that is going to get you the most retweets, that is going to get you the most likes on Facebook, that is going to get you the most views on YouTube. What is the way forward? क्योंकि अभी हम, this kind of media, a lot of people have talked about this, that this kind of media is still very new for us. Social media is still very new for human beings. So लोगों को अभी भी, they're still trying to figure out कि how does a human being react to social media? How does a human being live properly in the age of social media without going completely batshit insane? So do you have any advice for people other than, of course, the have a little bit of patience, stay off social media, but do you think those are the only two ways that we can manage the social media landscape? Because there are so many people now that have their livelihoods based around social media. So what would you tell them?
Well, I had actually addressed this very topic on an article which I had written on Opindia. And funny enough,
Kar lo
I
baat.
did not choose the headline. Headline, the title of the article was selected by the great Rahul Roshan, which was, if you don't click and read this article, your left eye will swell and hurt.
That's a great headline.
Yeah, so in that article, I had shared some research. So I have pulled that article up actually. So basically, it was about, if you remember a while ago, last year, there was this outrage on Center to Supreme Court, cows need Aadhaar-like identification too. I don't know how many of you remember that. I had basically commented on that article, and I had shared some research about computer science. This study was done by computer scientists at Columbia University and the French National Institute, which says 59% of the links shared on social media, by the way, never get clicked.
Wow.
Most people don't even click and read them.
Yeah.
Even the ones who read them don't go beyond the first two paragraphs. I'm just sharing you what the reality is. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. I'm not drawing any moral judgment on that. But look at the fun stuff here. So how was that study conducted? So they wrote a very, catchy headline, and then the first paragraph was proper English. And after that, the next paragraph itself of that article was basically, you can say, abba dabba jabba. They literally just kept on writing gibberish for paragraphs after that. And believe me, people shared that too.
Wow.
That's how things are. You cannot change it. So if you ask me, Kushal भाई क्या कर सकते हैं? मैं कहता हूँ बेस्ट है एक पैराग्राफ का आर्टिकल लिखो पीछे नीचे नीचे अब्बा डब्बा जो लिखो देते सब लोग वही पढ़ने वाले हैं.
सही बात है. I mean that's a great idea. That's a great idea for the upcoming journalists. जो भी लोग हैं, आप लोग इतनी मेहनत करते हो, 3-3 पेज के आर्टिकल लिखते हो फालतू में, एक
So
पैराग्राफ लिखो, सेम काम होगा.
I'm just going to share that article link in
हाँ.
the live chat of
Okay.
our video right now. If you want, it's an Opindia article. Guys, click on it and watch it. Believe me, you'll laugh at the study just because the link to the study itself is there in the article. So if you want to have a good time after the podcast, just go and link that study and read the article of that study. You'll have a hearty laugh as to how social media hijacks our brains and how hardly anybody reads anything these days.
Wow. Well, there you go, guys. Some off-air reading available for you as well. Okay, now let's come to an issue where in India, चाहे आप लेफ्ट विंग हो या चाहे आप नॉन लेफ्ट हो, दोनों इस बात पे एग्री करते हैं कि एटलीस्ट इंडिया में दोनों इस बात पे एग्री करते हैं कि जो फ्री स्पीच है, इट इज प्रोबेबली नॉट अ गुड थिंग. सो वी सी दैट नाउ एंड वी सी परफेक्ट एग्जांपल्स फ्रॉम बोथ साइड्स ऑफ द आयल रिसेंटली. तो अभी एक मूवी रिलीज होने जा रही है, एक्सीडेंटल प्राइम मिनिस्टर विद अनुपम खेर. ही विल बी प्लेइंग द रोल ऑफ मनमोहन सिंह. It is also based on the book of the same name, Accidental Prime Minister. बट ये मूवी रिलीज होने के पहले अभी कुछ महाराष्ट्र यूथ कांग्रेस के कुछ लोगों ने डिमांड किया कि आप इस मूवी की हमारे लिए, सिर्फ हमारे लिए, कांग्रेस यूथ वर्कर्स के लिए स्क्रीनिंग कराइए बिफोर द मूवी रिलीजेस. तो हमारे लिए पहले स्क्रीनिंग कराइए. अगर हमने कहा कि हाँ भाई ये मूवी ठीक है, तब रिलीज होगी मूवी, वरना ये मूवी रिलीज नहीं होगी. तो दिस इज द डिमांड दे मेड. दे सेड कि अगर इन्होंने हमारे लिए प्रीवियस स्क्रीनिंग, अर्ली स्क्रीनिंग नहीं कराई, तब हमारे पास अदर ऑप्शंस भी हैं. बेसिकली वी हैव अदर ऑप्शंस टू स्टॉप द स्क्रीनिंग ऑफ द फिल्म, व्हिच मींस गुंडागर्दी एंड मारपीट एसेंशियली, which is always the fallback option for most Indians. So this I find very, very interesting. Because this is a problem. In India, we call ourselves a democracy, and we're, of course, this is something that we should be very proud of, the fact that we're the world's largest democracy, and we're a relatively well-functioning democracy in a very disturbed part of the world, so to say. We're a relatively well-functioning democracy, but having said that, being as proud as we are of being a democracy, there are problems within our democracy. And one of the major problems within our democracy is the issue of free speech. And whether you're on the left, whether you're on the non-left, चाहे आप हिंदुत्ववादी हो, चाहे आप फुली लेफ्टिस्ट हो, जो भी हो, हम सब में ये थोड़ी सी प्रॉब्लम है कि अगर कोई कुछ कहता है जो हमें पसंद नहीं है, तो हम उसको बंद करवाने की कोशिश करते हैं. If somebody says something that we don't like, we try to shut it down. And this is obviously, I'm not making a general statement that everybody does this, but enough people do it to make it a very serious problem in India. Now, I'll come to an example of the non-left working to curb free speech as well. But first, Kushal bhai, I want to get your reaction on the whole accidental prime minister issue.
Well, I don't, just the same old rubbish. It's the old wine in a new bottle. Every time we have this, sometimes it's some leader, sometimes it's another leader. I mean, look at the start of this country. So we did not have this weird clause. What was that First Amendment? When it comes to our free speech, why did it come? Some magazines were criticizing Jawaharlal Nehru. If you remember, that's the foundation of the death of free speech in India.
That's right.
The great Mr. Nehru. And Shout out to Anand Ranganathan and his brilliant moment on Republic TV, where he just basically rattled out all the things banned under Nehru, and that will be etched in the human memory forever. So shout out to Ranga sir. And it's sad. People don't realize the value, and every time I want to pick on the non-left this time. You can pick on the left. I will annoy our own people.
Yeah,
My job.
that was the goal as well today.
Yeah. So I'm a specialist in annoying the non-left of India. So every time you go to पाकिस्तान में क्या हो रहा है, यार कोई स्टैंडर्ड है कि नहीं तुम्हारा? मतलब पाकिस्तान से कंपेयर कर रहे हो, कल को बोल दोगे वो देखो जी सऊदी अरेबिया में कर रहे हो, और तुमको सऊदी अरेबिया बनना है? मतलब कुछ तो लेवल तो रखो. मतलब कल को इंडियन क्रिकेट टीम बोल देगी तो क्या हो गया, जिम्बाब्वे में भी 100 मैच में एक आदमी 100 बनाता है, तो हमारा आदमी ने 2 बना दिए, वी आर बेटर देन देम. मतलब तुम्हारा स्टैंडर्ड अभी जिम्बाब्वे हो गया क्रिकेट में.
कल को सोमालिया की क्रिकेट टीम से अपने आप को कंपेयर करेंगे.
तो इससे अच्छा उतना भी हो करना, गली क्रिकेट टीम का स्टैंडर्ड रख लो ना फिर. तो स्टैंडर्ड ही अगर so what the non-left does is, this is a typical straw man. You pick the most ridiculous example in your neighborhood. So you pick Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan is not even a democracy. Pakistan is an army that has a mass of land which pretends to call itself a country. I mean, Pakistan is our standard. I mean, are we that rotten now? Our standard and our competition should be other Western democracies. Yeah. That should be our competition. We should aspire to go there, not to Pakistan. I mean, what kind of a rubbish standard is that? I mean, just look at it. See, why I'm picking this out was a journalist called Kishore Chandra Wankhem, right? He's been arrested and detained for calling Manipur CM a puppet. Really?
And not just been arrested, he has been detained under the bloody National Security Act. Just imagine, you have been for calling the Manipur CM a puppet and for using some apparently unparliamentary language towards Rajnath Singh. Just for doing that, you can be arrested under the bloody National Security Act. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, he has been arrested under sedition charges. So think about that for a second. Let anybody who's listening right now, let that sink in. ये अपने सर में थोड़ा बैठने दो, इसको मैरिनेट करने दो कि आपने सीएम को गरिया दिया और आपने होम मिनिस्टर को गरिया दिया और आपको सेडिशन चार्ज में जेल में डाल दिया गया है.
Yeah, and you know what the funniest part was? So I actually shared this news article on my Facebook page, and I said this is atrocious. So I get a reply. I mean, I am laughing right now because I have no other option. I have to laugh. That's the only way I can make sense of this. So there's a gentleman who replies to my post and says, "तो सही बात है, ऐसे थोड़ा ना अब्यूज करना चाहिए, जेल में डाल देना चाहिए जो अब्यूज करते." बोलो भाई सुबह से शाम तक तो तू भी गालियां देता है, तो तेरे को क्यों नहीं? ऐसे अगर if swearing is the standard, oh my God, then what we have to do is the jail has to be made the country and the rest of the country has to be made the jail, because सब लोग गाली दे रहे हैं इस देश में. I mean, come on, I have abused politicians in this country very, very many times. I'm sure, Sham, you have abused politicians in this country.
Yeah, I try not to abuse, but at least I've said some pretty nasty stuff, about politicians. So, judging by what this guy said, I should have been thrown in jail as well.
And now I want to go back, because otherwise people would have said कि देखो कुशल मेहरा तो बीजेपी वोटर है, वो बीजेपी के बारे में बात नहीं करता है. Op India is pro BJP portal. Well, you saw it here. This is the Op India podcast.
Yep.
And the co-hosts along with me, both of us went after the BJP. Show me one left-wing podcast, one left-wing portal that would ever do this to the Congress. Open challenge. So I did this for a purpose. I wanted to show how much freedom we have in Op India and how balanced we are in Op India. And we don't do this for approval from the left. To hell with the left. But we want to show what a bunch of hypocritical, biased asses they are. Because you will not see anybody in the left. Today, the accidental prime minister is all over social media, all over mainstream media. But guess what? Nobody in the left is talking about it. Nobody. Kaun sa accidental prime minister?
Yeah.
Kaun si news? You know what they are talking about when it comes to the movie? not the attempt to suppress the movie, but how can the BJP handle tweet about it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, such an atrocity. The atrocity is not trying to muzzle the movie. The atrocity is BJP tweeting about the movie. वाह जी वाह,
वही
कमाल हो
बात
गई.
हो गई ना, बीजेपी ने ट्वीट कर दिया मूवी के बारे में, तो मूवी हिंदुत्व एजेंडा हो गई, फिर ये मूवी नहीं रही. देन द मूवी, इफ द बीजेपी has tweeted about it, or if somebody who is, let's say, hindutwadi, somebody who is a non lefty, somebody like that tweets about it, then immediately the movie loses all merit of its own. मूवी का अपना कोई अस्तित्व नहीं रह गया और मूवी सीधे सीधे हिंदुत्व एजेंडा हो गई. तो this is what we are dealing with. So on the non left, that is why we make this case, Kushal and I, that is why we are making the case ki we somebody on in India, one side or whatever, if you want to call it a side, but some people in India have to be honest about the problems. And I would much rather that the side that is honest about its problems is the non left rather than the left, because I would rather be part of the side, or I would rather be part of a movement that is honest about the problems that India faces. And free speech issues is a very serious problem that we face. That if there's somebody says something that we don't like, हम उसके घर में घुस जाएंगे, हम उसको तरह तरह की धमकियां देंगे, हम उसको अभी करणी सेनावान पद्मावती वाला जो केस हुआ था, हम उसके सेट पे जाके उसको लपड़ मारेंगे. अरे ये क्या तरीका हुआ यार? हम अपने आप को डेमोक्रेसी बोलते हैं, हम जब भी बाहर जाते हैं तो सबको पेलते रहते हैं बाहर वालों को, अरे इंडिया इज अ डेमोक्रेसी, इंडिया इज द वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट डेमोक्रेसी, बट बोलने से डेमोक्रेसी नहीं हो जाती है. यू हैव टू एक्ट लाइक इट इज वेल. एंड नो मैटर हाउ मच यू हेट अमेरिका, आपको अमेरिका पसंद ना हो कोई बात नहीं, यू थिंक अमेरिका इज द डेविल, फैंटास्टिक. There are 10 tons of things that are wrong about America, but one thing that America gets right is that free speech is sacrosanct. यहाँ पे आप जिसको चाहे जो चाहे बोल सकते हो, अब उसका फॉल आउट जो हो सो हो, but at least people, the society in general, and the government understands how important free speech is. Or Kushal bhai, I wanted to get your opinion on this as well. And we've talked about this on a podcast that I think we did together on my show. But for people that missed out, I want to quickly just address it and see what your opinion on that is as well. That some people say कि यार देखो यहाँ इंडिया में एक लॉ एंड ऑर्डर का भी प्रॉब्लम है. अगर हम ऐसे ही फ्री स्पीच विली नीली ऐसे किसी को भी अलाउ कर दें कि हाँ भाई जो जो मर्जी है बोलो, हमारा लॉ एंड ऑर्डर का हालत अभी ये है कि there will be countrywide riots everywhere. तो इस तरह से we cannot allow willy nilly free speech in for anybody. So what would you say about that?
I'll address that question you've asked, but I want to touch upon something you had mentioned before.
Okay.
This was very important. You raised the point about a picture being tainted because it agrees with the so-called Hindutva agenda. चलो मान लिया जी ये पिक्चर हिंदुत्व एजेंडा है. मैं एक पिक्चर का नाम लेता हूँ, हैदर. क्या नाम था यार? वो हैदर ही था ना? विशाल, क्या नाम था उसका?
विशाल भारद्वाज.
विशाल भारद्वाज. वो किसका एजेंडा था भाई साहब? वो कश्मीरियत का एजेंडा नहीं था, वो न्यूट्रल थी. तो अगर तुम एजेंडा पेल सकते हो तो दूसरी साइड एजेंडा क्यों नहीं पेल सकती? मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूं ये एजेंडा है, मैं बोल रहा हूं एजेंडा पेलने में प्रॉब्लम क्या है. तुम तो सुबह से शाम तक लेफ्ट विंग ऑफ इंडिया, दे गेट अप इन द मॉर्निंग, दे स्टार्ट देयर ओम एजेंडाय नमः, and then before they go to sleep they say om agendaay namah. So they starts and ends with an agenda, yeah. And their whole agenda is under the veneer of neutrality. They keep on payloading agenda everywhere in the world, like shameless creatures. So I'm sorry, the BJP or anybody who is in the non-left does not need to apologize for standing up for what they believe is right. To hell with facts in a country where the left does not believe in facts.
Yeah,
I am for facts, but the left does not believe in facts. So when I deal with the left, I don't deal in a very hoity-toity way. To hell with them. If the accidental prime minister is Hindutva agenda, I will only say one thing: go and watch it. Say it's Hindutva agenda. बस टिकट खरीदना पक्का.
टिकट खरीदो, जाके मूवी देखो. डिबंक करने के लिए मूवी देखना भी जरूरी है.
Yes. So वो है. But now on to the second topic. Look, I agree, law and order is a very important aspect when it comes to free speech. In America, one of the biggest reasons they've been able to sustain free speech all these years is because there was a robust law and order situation. But That does not mean that we stop demanding free speech in India. See, every time this argument comes up now, you have the straw man. I will call that straw man, but in quotes, but they will cut your head off.
Hmm.
I mean, this is the answer all the time. The straw man is, but they will cut your head off. Well, my answer to that is, so you shut up. I will talk about it. If you are a shit scared human being, you don't talk about it. Take this all in quotes. I will talk about it. Make sure I have the rights. If they cut the head off, it will be mine, not yours. So shut up.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point as well. I think that's a fair point as well. I just, yeah, I think it is an interesting point, but you know, we can have both. You know, we can demand both. We can demand that भारत में का जो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर सिचुएशन है वो बेहतर हो. We can work towards demanding from our politicians, demanding from our elected officials कि आप भारत का लॉ एंड ऑर्डर सिचुएशन सुधारिए. We can demand that. At the same time, we can say कि भारत में फ्री स्पीच भी एब्सोल्यूट होनी चाहिए. Those two things don't need to be mutually exclusive. Those two demands, I mean. वो दोनों डिमांड अलग अलग टाइम पे करना जरूरी नहीं है. ये दोनों डिमांड हम सेम टाइम पे कर सकते हैं. तो दैट इज माय व्यू ऑफ इट कि हाँ, law and order situation can be improved, but at the same time we can ask for free speech.
Definitely.
They
And you
don't
know
need
what?
to be mutually exclusive.
I would request everybody who watches this podcast, do this for me. At least write an email or at least tweet to the Prime Minister of this country and demand these two things. Tell the Prime Minister of India, the best thing is if we send an email to the Prime Minister. I mean, there's a website of the Prime Minister, there's a PMO website, there is the app, there are many ways. Just do that. Write to them that we want our cop to citizen ratio of India improved. We want better policing, better law and order, and we want more freedom of expression. See what the Prime Minister does. Let's try it out, right? We keep whining and whining. It's like we are the internal whiners of the world. But let us try writing to the Prime Minister. Maybe the Prime Minister thinks, मेरे को कोई लिखता तो है नहीं, किसी को पढ़ी नहीं होगी, वो एक ही पागल है कुशल मेहरा जो रोज मेरे को लिखता रहता है गधे के जैसे. तो मे बी अगर प्राइम मिनिस्टर को 5-6 हजार पागल लिखेंगे तो मे बी प्राइम मिनिस्टर साथ में सीरियसली लेंगे, बोले नहीं यार ये तो लोग एक्चुअली में लॉ एंड ऑर्डर चाहते हैं. अच्छा, they don't like gangland democracies. Damn, that's not fair. So I guess so please write to the Prime Minister about these two issues if you believe in what we believe. Otherwise, let's just keep making things the way they are.
ट्रू. एंड लुक अगेन, मैं लोग बोलेंगे कि ये साला अमेरिका की क्यों बात कर रहा है, लेकिन अमेरिका में एक चीज मैंने नोटिस की है कि एक चीज जो बहुत इफेक्टिव है, जो अमेरिका के लोग करना जानते हैं और जो अमेरिका के लोग करने से चूकते नहीं है, स्पेशली जो छोटे शहरों में लोग रहते हैं, वो हमेशा ये करते हैं. दे विल रीच आउट टू देयर लोकल इलेक्टेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स. ये इनको फोन करेंगे, ये इनको ईमेल करेंगे, ये इनके ऑफिस में दफ्तरों में जाके इनसे मिलेंगे और इनको हमेशा बोलते हैं कि भाई देखो, हमने आपको इलेक्ट किया है, हमको ये चाहिए, ये चाहिए, ये चाहिए, हमको एक टाइमलाइन दो कि कब तक हमको ये सब चीजें मिलेंगी जिसके लिए हमने आपको इलेक्ट किया है. एंड इट इज अ वेरी पावरफुल थिंग. यहाँ पे ये लोग मैं जानता हूं लोगों को जो सिर्फ सीधे फोन उठाते हैं और अपने इलेक्टेड ऑफिशियल के ऑफिस को फोन करते हैं. वो फोन उठाता है और बोलते हैं कि बेटा देखो, हमने तुमको इन चीजों के लिए इलेक्ट किया था, उस पर कुछ हुआ नहीं है, उस पर क्या हो रहा है. एंड इट इज सच अ पावरफुल थिंग. लोगों को लगता है कि अरे यार, हम लोग इतने सारे करोड़ लोग हैं, नेता हमारी बात क्यों सुनेंगे. लेकिन यार, तुम ही लोग तो इलेक्ट करते हो नेता को. तुम्हारी बात नहीं सुनेगा तो और किसकी बात सुनेगा? दूसरा नेता इलेक्ट करो, वरना उसके अलावा तो अगर वो तुम्हारी बात नहीं सुनेगा तो इट इज अ वेरी पावरफुल थिंग. इंडिया में हम इसको इतना अंडर एस्टिमेट करते हैं कि हम अपने लोकल लीडर को या इलेक्टेड ऑफिशियल्स को कॉल करें, फोन करें, जाके मिले, ईमेल करें. कम से कम ईमेल भी करो. अगर तुमको उनसे बात नहीं करनी, कम से कम ईमेल करो. लाइक कुशल भाई सेड, एट द वेरी लीस्ट उनको आप एक ईमेल भेजो. मेरी माता जी हैं जो जब भी कुछ होता है सीधे अपने इलेक्टेड ऑफिशियल को ईमेल कर देती हैं या फोन कर देती हैं. और द इलेक्टेड ऑफिशियल इन द लोकल एमएलए इन पटना नोज माय मदर बाय नेम, क्योंकि वो जबरदस्ती उनको हमेशा हर चीज पे फोन करती रहती है, मैसेज करती रहती है कि सर जी हमने ये किया था, सर जी हमने इसलिए आपको वोट किया था, हो क्या रहा है इस बारे में. तो ये सब चीजें जरूरी है. हम लोग इसको इतना फॉर ग्रांटेड लेते हैं, हम लोग इसको इतना अंडर एस्टिमेट करते हैं. और नेता को अगर हम बताएंगे नहीं दैट व्हाट वी आर थिंकिंग, इफ वी डोंट रिमाइंड पीपल व्हाट वी वांट, देन व्हाई विल दे डू इट? ये भी तो बात है, गरियाने से, सोशल मीडिया पे गरियाने से कुछ नहीं होगा, क्योंकि नेता अपना सोशल मीडिया पे कितना चेक करेगा? उनको ईमेल करो, उनको मैसेज करो, उनको फोन करो, उनसे जाके मिलो, तब फर्क पड़ता है. इट इज अ वेरी 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 इंपॉर्टेंट डेमोक्रेटिक टूल दैट वी जस्ट डोंट यूज.
But you know what people are going to do? They're just going to look at Pakistan and say, "But Pakistan is like this. Why does Sham keep talking about America? We are better than America. हम सोने की चिड़िया हैं. हम पाकिस्तान बनेंगे."
पाकिस्तान बन लो, देख लो क्या हो रहा है वहां पे. मतलब इट्स यही बात है ना. देखो, आई ऑल्सो थिंक दैट पीपल से दैट इंडिया इज अ ग्रेट नेशन, ग्रेट सिविलाइजेशन. आई कंप्लीटली एग्री, आई एम नॉट डिसएग्रीइंग विथ यू. बट इफ यू कैन मेक इट बेटर, क्या प्रॉब्लम है? If you can make your situation better, like people who have a job right now, people who are working in a decent job, making decent money, I'm sure they're happy. But if they can be better at their job, if they can make more money, what is the problem? There's no problem. It makes life better for you. It makes life better for your family. It makes life better for your children. So agar if you have the opportunity to make your life better, if you have the opportunity to make your existence on this rock better, why don't you do it? you know सिर्फ हम ग्रेट हैं इसका ये मतलब नहीं हुआ कि हम ग्रेटर नहीं हो सकते. You know what I mean? I think this is a hang up that a lot of people have. Ki we're a great country, we're a fantastic civilization. All those things are true, but every civilization can be better. And I think that is the mindset that most people need to have, rather than just resting on our laurels. Because resting on our laurels, look where it got Rome. It got Rome nowhere. So we need to move forward a little bit.
Yeah, more than laurels, I think it is resting on a bed of thorns. To be very honest, that's what my.
It's true. It is, and we really need to start looking seriously at improving certain things. If we truly want to call ourselves a thriving democracy, we need to improve few things about that. And it's okay. It doesn't make us bad. It doesn't make us anything. It just makes us a country that wants to improve on its current situation, just like any other country in the world. All right. Now, I want to move to things that we like or things that we hate for this last week of the podcast of 2018. So, for this last week of the podcast of 2018, Kushal bhai, what is something that you like and what is something that you hated?
Okay, cool. So something that I like, I was actually thinking, there were a few things, but then I came across this tweet. So I'll give you the handle name. It is at Steve Stu Will, where
Let's see
he
if I can share it. Can you see it on my screen now? I believe you can.
So this is the tweet that I'm talking about. So the tweets basically about the 10 commandments of logic. So I'm just going to read them out if you are going to be listening to this on the audio version. So the 10 commandments of logic are: thou shalt not attack the person's character, but the argument, ad hominem. 2. Thou shalt not misrepresent or exaggerate a person's argument in order to make it easier to attack, strawman fallacy. Thou shalt not use small numbers to represent the all, hasty generalization. 4. Thou shalt not argue thy position by assuming one of its premises is true, begging the question. 5. Thou shalt not claim that because something occurred before, it must be the cause. Post hoc, false cause. 6. Thou shalt not reduce the argument down to two possibilities, false dichotomy. 7. Thou shalt not argue that because of our ignorance, a claim must be true or false, ad ignorantum. 8. Thou shalt not lay the burden of proof onto him that is questioning the claim, burden of proof reversal. 9. Thou shalt not assume this follows that when there is no logical connection, non sequitur. And 10. Thou shalt not argue that because a premise is popular, therefore it must be true, bandwagon fallacy. I think these 10 thinking tools, I would like to use the word thinking tools for them. These 10 tools, if we follow that in our general day to day life, and especially we follow these tools when we are on social media, I think it will make our discourse in general far, far better than what it is right now. Because, every day you go on social media, it just everybody is a mind reader, on the basis of one tweet, उनको ये भी पता चल जाता है कि मैंने 500 साल पहले भी क्या पता नहीं मेरे चौथे पांचवें पिछले जन्म में मैंने क्या खाया होगा, उनको ये
It's
भी
our
पता है.
it's our voodoo yoga powers.
Yeah, so it's like that. So I really enjoyed this. So hopefully, if anybody who watches this or listens to this later on, if they are able to follow some of those rules, I think it will help you a lot. So that's my thing that I liked.
Okay, now what is something that you hated for this week?
Oh man. So there were. So if you remember, in our previous podcast, we had Sham had discussed the Nasiruddin Shah issue, right? So the things that I hate this time around are actually two issues, and this is my answer to Mr. Shah. So Nasiruddin Shah साहब को मेरा ये आंसर है कि पहला तो ये है कि हमारे एक महान कौन से हैं यार वो ये अगर असम में हुआ था ना ये किस्सा
Badruddin Ajmal, I think, right?
Yeah, it was Badruddin Ajmal who basically threatened a journalist by saying that he's going to beat him up. And what was interesting was his threat was such a, it is such a standard Indian threat. I mean, threat में भी variety नहीं थी. He's like, तुम जानते नहीं हो हमारा 800,000 लोग हैं हमारे पास, हम तुम्हारा मुंह तोड़ देंगे.
Yeah.
मुंह किस लिए तोड़ देंगे? क्योंकि भाई जर्नलिस्ट ने उसको क्वेश्चन पूछ लिया. And second was something that I came across on Twitter, which was in the city of Hyderabad. If I remember, it's the Global Hospital, right? It happened in the hospital called Global, if I remember, where unfortunately a female passed away. I read the news report in the News Minute too. And it was there in Hindustan Times too, and a few other. And I saw a video of 3 Muslim men going inside the hospital reception with, I don't know, some kind of thing in their hand. It must be some iron rod or something. And they just smashed the whole thing completely.
Yep.
What was scary was not just them smashing it. It was that there were cops right besides them and they were threatening the cops. So now my question to Nasiruddin Shah is, भारत का मुसलमान इतना डरा हुआ है कि वो जाके अस्पताल की पूरी रिसेप्शन तोड़ देता है. भारत का मुसलमान इतना डरा हुआ है कि भाई वो तो जर्नलिस्ट को बोलता है देख रहा है इधर 800 से 100,000 लोग हैं, मैं तुमको ठोक सकता हूं अगर मैं चाहूं. For the record, the person Badruddin Ajmal later on came in a video and apologized and said it was an aberration. Well, to hell with his apology. What an aberration, I would say. Yeah. The second case that I spoke about, yes, those 3 Muslim gentlemen were arrested. I would not have used Muslim gentlemen in normal discourse. But Mr. Shah came up with this theory, Bharat ka Musalman dara hua hai. I am forced to respond to Nasiruddin Shah by saying, ये कैसा डरा हुआ मुसलमान है जो उस पुलिस को भी डरा देता है?
Yep.
इसका जवाब देंगे आप मिस्टर शाह मुझे? ये कौन सा डरा हुआ मुसलमान है भारत का? शर्म आनी चाहिए हर आदमी को जो सुबह से लेकर शाम तक फियर साइकोसिस क्रिएट करता रहता है इस देश में. एक तो मर के, एक तो 1947 में लाखों लोगों की मौत हुई थी इस देश में. चैन नहीं मिला क्या लोगों को? उसके बाद भी रोज सुबह वो आग में घी डालते रहते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि जी इलेक्शन आ रही है, फियर साइकोसिस पैदा करो. और मैं नहीं कह रहा हूं कि एक साइड करती है, दूसरी साइड भी करती है, मगर पॉइंट है ये कब बंद होगा? दोनों साइड कब ये व्हाइट फ्लैग हिलाने वाली है कि भाई कोई और टॉपिक भी ले लो? आई वांट टू सीरियसली क्वेश्चन दिस एंगल ऑफ भारत का डरा हुआ मुसलमान. सो व्हाट डू यू थिंक श्याम, भारत का मुसलमान डरा हुआ है?
मुझे तो नहीं लगता. मैं पटना में कुछ एरियाज है, मैं दिल्ली में भी रहता था. दिल्ली में भी, पुरानी दिल्ली में, स्पेशली चांदनी चौक में, अराउंड जामा मस्जिद के पास कुछ ऐसे एरियाज हैं जहां पुलिस जाने से घबराती है, जहां पुलिस भी ज्यादातर उनको अगर आप कुछ इंसिडेंट के लिए भेजो तो जाती नहीं है. तो इस केस में मुसलमान डरा हुआ है या पुलिस डरी हुई है? तो आई मीन आई एग्री कि यहाँ पे आई एम श्योर देयर आर केसेस भारत में जहां पे मुसलमानों के साथ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हुआ है या मुसलमानों के साथ गलत हुआ है, बट दैट इज नॉट एक्सक्लूसिव टू द मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी. लोग ये पैदा करने की एक कोशिश कर रहे हैं, एक एक ऐसा आइडिया कि भारत ऐसा देश है जहां पे सिर्फ मुसलमानों को सिंगल आउट किया या माइनॉरिटीज को सिंगल आउट किया जा रहा है और उनके साथ ज्यादती हो रही है इस देश में। ऐसा है नहीं। और इस तरह का फियर साइकोसिस, आई अंडरस्टैंड आप इलेक्शन के लिए क्रिएट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो, लेकिन ये इलेक्शन खत्म होने के बाद ये फियर साइकोसिस ऐसा नहीं है कि बंद हो जाएगा। द साइकोसिस कंटिन्यूज। आपने आपने इलेक्शन में इससे जो भी बेनिफिट पाना है वो पा लिया, जो भी करना है वो कर लिया, बट इसका जो लॉन्ग टर्म इफेक्ट हो रहा है देश के लोगों के ऊपर, स्पेशली फ्रॉम somebody like Nasiruddin Shah, who's such a well-respected actor. He used to be the everyman actor. The middle class person, the everyman of India used to look at Nasiruddin Shah and used to think like, "Arey yaar, ye to bilkul mere jaisa aadmi hai." You don't look at Shammi Kapoor and think, "Arey yaar, ye to bilkul mere jaisa aadmi hai." You look at Nasiruddin Shah and think, "Yaar, this is me. This is basically me. He's living my life on the silver screen." So from somebody like that you really identify with, that and every man in India would really identify with, to hear that from somebody like that, not everybody is going to be able to see through the facade. A lot of people are going to fall for it. A lot of people that have such a deep admiration for a great actor like Nasiruddin Shah, they're going to look at it and they're going to think कि हाँ भाई प्रॉब्लम है, यहाँ पे एक बहुत सीरियस प्रॉब्लम है, हो सकता है मुसलमानों को एक्स्ट्रा तंग किया जा रहा है भारत में। तो इस तरह का साइकोसिस, it doesn't help us in any way, shape or form whatsoever. That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
and it's frustrating, and it happens every single time you create a fear psychosis, as if they say, "अरे election time है, समझ जाओ." वो election के बाद जाता नहीं है. It gets ingrained in the mind of the person, and victimology is the best card. If most human beings are experts at convincing themselves that they're victims, whether they are the Hindus in India or whether they are the Muslims in India, both sides have convinced themselves that they're victims.
Yeah.
The point is, we need to break this kind of mindset. The point is, we need to start treating each other as individuals,
Yeah.
not as collectives. That's the whole point of living in a democratic system, that each individual person is treated equally. I mean, at least I thought that was the plan, or maybe that is not the plan, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I just think it's just a shame. I just think it's just a shame, because people like Nasiruddin Shah, yes, they're ordinary citizens of the country, just like anybody else, like us, but they have a voice, and I think that with that voice comes a certain amount of responsibility as well. That's my opinion of it. Okay, so to talk about things that I like, was a very interesting thing that I saw, and some devotees of Sabrimala actually organized this thing, where they set up a 795-kilometer long human chain in Kerala, and all of them stood side by side, holding a lamp in their hands, just to show. Oh, microphone, there it goes again. Just to show solidarity with the people, with the other Sabrimala devotees, just to show some solidarity with the traditions of Sabrimala and stuff like that, and just to show a little bit of protest against what the left and what the leftist government in Kerala is doing to the people of Sabrimala and to the devotees of Sabrimala. I mean, so I'm going to quickly see if I can play that video for you really quickly, and I'm going to try and share my screen with you so you'll be able to hopefully see it. And let me know if you can see it right here.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, 1 second. So as you can see over here, you can see just on the video, on the side of the roads, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that are lining the streets and just quietly standing with a agni in their hands, just quietly protesting. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I thought it was a wonderful way to show your protest. I thought it was a wonderful way to show your dissent, and it sets a fantastic example for protests in India in the future, in my opinion as well. Because I thought it was just absolutely beautiful. And sorry, go ahead.
The Azad Maidan protesters disagree with you.
Of course they do. Of course they do. Okay, so for something that I hated, I saw this article written by a gentleman called Abhijit Sengupta. He wrote it for The Wire. And in my opinion, that article is very symptomatic of a disease. एक बीमारी है, in my opinion. बहुत सारे liberal, particularly liberal English educated Hindus को एक बीमारी है of this weird self pity and self hatred. They go out of their way almost, and it's very similar to this hatred that a lot of sort of white people have in the West for their culture. There are obviously differences. I understand that, but it's not very dissimilar from that strange hatred that they have. So these liberal Hindus, he wrote this article where he said that, my Hinduism is nothing like the Hinduism that I see and the Hindutva that I see in India anymore. And he said stuff like, India was never a great country. India was never a great civilization. India was just hundreds of different kingdoms scattered across this landscape that was forcibly made to become one after independence. There's nothing great about our culture. And Hinduism basically means that uh, peace. Hinduism basically means not fighting. Hinduism basically is benign. And that is such a dangerous concept, in my opinion. That is a very dangerous concept for any nation. If the people of any nation start to say that our country and our nation and our civilization means that we will not react to anything that happens to us, that when if you try to hurt us, we will only offer the other cheek. That is the only reaction that you will see when you try to harm the Indians. We always offer the other cheek. And he kept talking about offering the other cheek in Gandhi and stuff like that. And I just hate that kind of discourse. I hate that kind of an attitude that so many liberal, particularly those English educated Hindus, tend to have, that there's nothing redeemable, there's nothing good about India's culture. And India's culture only means non-violence and offering the other cheek. That is a dangerous thing for any country, because it makes you a weak nation, and people look at you as a weak nation. And every time you bring up the example of Israel, and everybody gets immediately upset because, oh, you're talking about a fascist Zionist state and all that stuff. And it's an overused example. And it's an overused example, in my opinion, because it's a good example. Because in my opinion, I don't think Israel's trying to destroy the Middle East, or Israel's trying to take over the Middle East. But at the same time, they're a civilization, and they're a people that are not going to sit around and offer the other cheek if somebody comes to harm them. If some other nation or if some other people mean them harm, they're not going to sit around and just offer the other cheek and say, thank you, come again, something like that. That's not going to happen. And in India, these liberals try to push this idea that that is what India is all about. Whereas India has a long and storied history of people standing up and fighting bullies, standing up to invaders and fighting those invaders, standing up to defend their dharma, standing up to defend their country. Now, you may say that it was a regional movement, it was not a pan national movement, whatever, but there were still people that were standing up to defend their dharma, that they were standing up to defend their civilization. So I just don't like this weird interpretation that the urban liberal sort of leftist Hindus have for Indians, because that is not a good message to give Indians. That is not a good message to leave the next generation with. That's my opinion. I might just be some right wing fascist, but I don't know what you think.
No, it's a parasitized mindset. So what the mindset basically has done is it has. So there are two strands of ahimsa in the philosophy of mainstream India or mainstream Hinduism. Or here the term Hinduism is used as a loose term, which is a geographical identity, not a religious identity. So you could be a Sikh, Jain, Buddhist, whatever. So I'm talking about all the 10 darshanas in the mainstream Hindu philosophy. Now, only in Jainism is ahimsa and in an absolute pacifist form, or maybe most schools of Buddhism have
Yeah.
ahimsa in a very pacifist form. Even some schools of Buddhism also allow self-defense. But ahimsa in Hinduism was never pacifism. This is the Gandhian, corruption of the concept of ahimsa. Although I'm
Yeah.
an admirer of Gandhiji, I never agreed with Gandhi's concept of non-violence. That was not non-violence. That was basically pacifism. So we have to distinguish between pacifism and non-violence. Non-violence is मैं जाके तुम्हें नहीं मारूंगा, मगर अगर तुम मुझे मारोगे तो मैं इतना मारूंगा कि तुम कभी वापस ही नहीं आने के लायक रहोगे.
Exactly.
इंडिया हैज टू हैव दैट पॉलिसी. मतलब लोगों का दिमाग खराब हो गया कि नेबर पाकिस्तान है
And China है.
चाइना और पाकिस्तान. हम hey, please one more here sir,
One
one
more on the other cheek, please.
sir, please smack me, please. I am missing you, sir, so much. Please, sir, why haven't you beaten me for so many days, sir? Look at my cheek; it has stopped becoming red because of your slaps. I mean, it's a stupid. I think it's a parasitized mindset. And usually, who are the people who spew these parasitized things? These are usually privileged urban elites.
Yeah.
कभी सुना है कोई इंडिया पाकिस्तान के बॉर्डर शहरों में रहने वाला बेचारा गरीब आदमी जो हर चौथे दिन बॉर्डर की शेलिंग होती है और वो ऐसे अपने घर में नीचे जाके बंकर पे अपना सर नीचे ऐसे टकला नीचे बचा रहा है, ओए कित्थों दी आया चिल्ला रहा है. कभी सुना है उसको ऐसी बातें करते हुए? ये सब ऊल जलूल, ये जिसको मैं बोलता हूँ ना वेली फिलॉसफी होती है. मतलब वेले बैठे हैं, लाइफ सेट है, पैसे बैंक में है, सेट जॉब है, लड़की सेट है, यहाँ लड़का सेट है, डिपेंडिंग ऑन योर प्रेफरेंस. भाई ठीक है, ये भी होएगा. तो ये आई थिंक दिस इज अ पैरासिटाइज्ड माइंडसेट एंड इट रिमाइंड्स मी ऑफ दैट कॉकेशियन कपल. वो याद नहीं है, दो व्हाइट लोग, उन्होंने बोला था वी विल हग एवरीवन, हम जफ्फी पाएंगे जी, जादू की जफ्फी पाएंगे. वो आईसिस के साथ जादू की जफ्फी पाने गए, जफ्फी तो पा ली, बाद में बम फूट गया, मर गए वो दोनों. तो यही होता है. तो ऐसे लोगों के साथ यही होगा. तो मेरा तो सिंपल फंडा है, इन लोगों को अगर इतना ही पैसिफिज्म का प्यार है ना, इनको बोलो भाई तू जा, एक काम कर, इंडियन मुजाहिदीन से तू पटा ले यार, इंडियन मुजाहिदीन को कन्विंस कर दे तू. मैं मान जाऊं, अजीत डोभाल साहब को बोल देना चाहिए, सर ये जितने पैसिफिस्ट हैं ना दुनिया के, आप इनको हायर कर लो, सेंड देम टू पीस मिशंस. इनको पीस दूत करके भेजो इनको. ये दूत नहीं, ये भूत बन के वापस आएंगे. ये सारे के सारे जो है ना दूत, हमारे शांति दूत जिनको बोलते हैं ना, अगर महाभारत याद होगी तो शांति दूत होते थे तभी. तो ये शांति दूत जाएंगे मगर भूत बन के वापस आएंगे, क्योंकि इनको उधर मार पड़ेगी. फिर इनको रियलाइज होएगा कि लाइफ क्या होती है. ये देखो इंडिया में है ना ऐसी, मैं इसको बोलता हूँ बेवकूफाना फिलॉसफी. जैसे वो अंकल बोलते हैं, बेटा तुम क्या, पैसा सब कुछ नहीं होता, और तुम क्या जानो गरीबी क्या होती है. मतलब जैसे गरीबी कोई जानने वाली चीज है, मतलब मैं जानने के लिए गरीब बन जाऊं. क्यों यार, बोलो ना बेटा अमीरी बहुत अच्छी चीज होती है, सारे अमीर बन जाओ. ये किस किस्म की ये इसको वेली फिलॉसफी होती है. ये हमारे देश में बहुत लोग चेपते हैं. और ये जिस जेंटलमैन की आप बात कर रहे हो जिन्होंने वायर पे आर्टिकल लिखा है, ये उसी पैरासिटाइज्ड माइंडसेट का एक बहुत ही बड़ा पौधा नहीं है, ये एक वृक्ष बन गया है. जो ये हर शहर में, हर गली कूचे में ऐसे टेक्निकल लोग होते हैं जो सिर्फ अपनी पैसिफिस्ट दुनिया में रहते हैं. ये जब कोई ऐसी बातें करता है ना, मेरा तो कई बार मन करता है ना, कोई सटका हुआ होगा ना, उसको 2 रसीद उधर ही दे देगा. मैं करूंगा, मगर हो सकता है हो जाए कि कोई कर दे. तो क्या करोगे तुम क्या अपना गाल दोगे क्या उसको? मतलब बेवकूफ वाली बात होती है. ठीक है, देखो क्या होता है, बोलना होता है तो कुछ भी बोल दो. अभी क्रिकेट मैच चालू होता है, 2 कमेंटेटर होते हैं मगर 5 लोग बाहर टीवी देख रहे होते हैं, वो भी अपनी कमेंट्री करते रहते हैं. तो ये बस कमेंट्री देना हमारा जन्म सिद्ध अधिकार है. तो ये भी हो गया, तो हमने ये भी चेप दिया. अभी मुझे हंसी आती है जब मैं सुनता हूँ, मुझे और कुछ नहीं आता. आई जस्ट फील लाइक लाफिंग एट दीस पीपल. I really want to send them to ISIS. I mean, let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's like it's and before people take this out of context, हम लोग ये नहीं कह रहे कि हम लोग इनको बंदी बना के आईसिस भेज देंगे सो आईसिस कैन एग्जीक्यूट दें. All we are saying is कि आपको अगर इतना पैसिफिज्म का शौक है तो आप जाके आईसिस को कन्विंस कीजिए कि ये क्या है, क्यों आप बंदूकें लेके यहाँ वहां दौड़ रहे हो, बेवकूफी कर रहे हो. रखो बंदूकें, आओ हमारे साथ योगा करो, थोड़ा मेडिटेशन करो, सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. थोड़ा दैट इज व्हाट वी आर सजेस्टिंग, दैट इफ यू आर सच अ पैसिफिस्ट, जाइए आईसिस को थोड़ा योगा कराइए, मेडिटेशन कराइए. वो क्या होता है आजकल बड़ा पॉपुलर हो गया, पपी योगा. जाके आईसिस के साथ थोड़ा पपी योगा कीजिए. वो होता है ना, विद अ डॉग डज योगा नेक्स्ट टू यू. सो grab a dog and do yoga next to them, get ISIS to drop their weapons, and world peace. हो गया काम खत्म.
I have to say something. I just read a message on the live chat which I found very funny. So someone said PEACE, peace mission, will come back as a PIECE peace mission. So I totally agree with that. But वही है वो peace की spelling change हो गई. You will go as one piece, come back into multiple pieces. यही होएगा.
So Bill Maher used to make that joke, right? That Bill Maher used to
Yeah.
say that Islam is definitely a religion of peace. There's a piece of you there. There's a piece of you there.
So yeah, it's actually I think it's a serious mental problem, and what happens is if you deny the reality, sometimes it gives you a kind of comfort. That if you deny that the other side does not believe in you, and this actually is a typical, I don't know about you, Sham, but I find this as a typical Hindu problem. Like
Oh
if you
yes,
have discussions about religion per se, when there are 20 Hindus in a community gathering and we are discussing religion, you notice Hindus are obsessed with all religions are the same, boss.
yeah,
All religions are the same. All. So, then, naturally, an atheist like me would be like, all are the same. It's like, yes. And like, then why are there different religions? Then they don't have any answer. It's like, I don't know. It's like, but if all are the same, then everyone should. And then my next question is, if all are the same, why don't you become a Christian?
yeah. Everybody create one religion called Islam, Hinduology, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it's just it's stupid stuff people say, and we should have a category like stupid things people say which actually have no value or meaning in real life.
Yeah,
This is one of them.
it has no meaning, and in my opinion, the it makes the country, it makes the people of the country weak. Or even if it doesn't make them, let's say, weak, it gives the appearance to your enemies that you are weak. That if you are only, Kshama Shobhati us bujang ko jiske paas garal ho. Basically, people, that's what they say. You need to command respect. You can't demand respect. If you demand respect, nobody will give it to you. If you command respect, you might get it. And that is a very, very important thing for us to remember, particularly in the neighborhood that we live in. If we were a country like Canada, then not to worry about anything. But we are not Canada. We live in the part of the world that we live in. We are surrounded by the countries that we are surrounded by. So we can't just sit around and be like, यार हमें अगर कोई थप्पड़ मारेगा तो हमारा तो यही कल्चर है कि हम दूसरा गाल आगे करेंगे. बेटा तुम दूसरा गाल आगे करोगे तो सीधे मुंडी ले लेगा वो आदमी. So we need to be a little careful with that kind of rhetoric now.
Yeah, I don't think so even Canada is that peaceful. Canada can get away with a lot of bhangra which हमारे Trudeau uncle करते हैं because they have America as their neighbor. Otherwise Canada would not be that peace loving.
Exactly. That's exactly why. Because उनका बड़ा भाई बैठा हुआ है नीचे इसलिए.
Yes.
So okay, so that will do it for this episode. But before we actually do leave, I want to make sure I give Kushal Bhai time to have the final word. But before I let him have the final word, I also want to just quickly tell everybody who is watching Aaj ki thank you very much for coming and joining this new podcast. I hope you guys are enjoying this podcast format. If there is something that you feel like you can improve upon, Kushal Bhai will get to it in a second, but please do let us know. Again, I want to thank everybody for tuning into the podcast, and I hope that the podcast can grow from strength to strength in 2019. And I hope that आप लोग आके हमेशा हम लोगों को इस तरह से every Friday इस podcast को live join करेंगे. So again, thank you very much for watching these 3 episodes so far, and we will hopefully see you again in 2019 as well. And I will let Kushal Bhai now have the final word.
So, guys, here's my request. So, for 2019, what we have in mind is we want to start inviting a lot more guests to the podcast too. So, here's my request to you: if you have a few subjects in mind, topics that you would like us to cover, even let's say there are weekly political events that you think that need to be spoken about. So, what I'm going to do is let's have 3 or 4 different categories. So, let's say number 1 is the category that the current events that you want us to cover on the weekly podcast. Second is, let's say you want a specific guest that you want Sham and I to talk to on the podcast itself. It's not possible that every time we have Nupur or Rahul or XYZ on the podcast, we can get different faces also. So please send us names, and also with those names, tell us what you want us to talk to them about. Or if you have anything out of this, like let's say completely out of the box idea, So any of those ideas, please email us at feedback@opindia.com. That is feedback@opindia.com. Also, as you know, running a website, running a news portal, it does not run free of cost. So I would request each and every one of you, 2019 is going to be a very big year for Op India personally. So my request to each and everyone who's going to watch this now live, who's watching this live, or is going to watch this later, please support opindia.com. Please support them. The amount does not matter. I know I say this every time because it is that important. It is very important that we put our money where our mouth is. We should all support Op India. Op India is a great, great portal. I would request all of you to go on their website, click on the support button, and do whatever you can in your little way. And I want to end this last podcast for 2018 on this one final note. It has been a very interesting year. In politics, if you look at it, BJP won some, BJP lost some. On the social level, we had beautiful topics to outrage on a daily basis. There was no shortage of outrage. So I can only hope that 2019 comes up with even better topics to outrage and even better election results for BJP, hopefully, as I am a BJP voter. And I would like to wish all of you a very happy and prosperous 2019. Party hard, drink responsibly, and if you get drunk, please find a good friend to take care of you after you're drunk. So on that note, I would say goodbye and have a great year. Bye, guys.
All right, fantastic, guys. See you in 2019. Namaskar.